Russian School of Chess contains several different basic ideas of a strategy, coordinated attack, and tactics. Every strong player today, beginning strong master and up to the very elite of chess players, they do play using basics of components, probably all components of Russian chess school. Some of them learned it as a Russian chess school and some of them didn't, but they still play that way. The why this happens is because they follow basics of Russian chess school will make you a very strong player. But if you never followed and never studied those basics, you just see the games of best chess players. And as you see, as you play more and more and more games and you become better chess players, whether you like it or not, you are using those principles without even knowing, and they make a lot of sense. And finally, you become very strong players, and in your arsenal is all the weapons. You have all the weapons of the Russian chess school. Let me give you Fischer example. Fischer, for example, there weren't that many super strong players, but he was studying games of Russian players when he was very young, 10, 11 years old. He was studying what they had to say about it. He even learned some chess, little Russian that is enough to read the chess books. So, and that helped him a great deal. I know this for fact. Fischer himself, even though later on he demolished all Russian players, but the school, he did not demolish Russian chess school. He used it as a weapon. Now, let me show you some of the important components. Now, we just saw in the French how we can dominate dark squares. The idea of playing on weak squares is very common. Well, this is completely different opening. It's a different opening, but you can see the similarity of ideas. You're going to face them now. E5, D5. It's one of the openings I recommend, and actually the main reason I recommend this opening. It's not because in Scotch or two knights defense you get better positions than you get in a Ruy Lopez. Not by any means, but the reason why I recommend, because you learn here a lot about strategy, about blockade, about attack. Now, I'm not going to go through opening for the sake of learning opening, but I'm going to show you, outline you basic strategical points. This is very important. Bishop b5, bishop d7 also can be played bishop c5, but that doesn't change much as far as white's strategy goes. Bishop d7, bishop takes c6, pawn takes c6, castle. Now what we want to exchange those knights, to bring the bishop to e3, and to play knight b3, generating total blockade of dark squares. Of course, it's not as easy to achieve as I just mentioned. Black can cooperate, or black can try to stop that. Well, in this position, black has moved bishop e7, bishop c5, and pawn c5. Well, with the pawn c5, white gets an advantage after knight b3, and I don't want to go into details because this is not the subject. My goal is not for you to learn this opening in this, because we have DVDs on that. But most common and main move is bishop c5. Now, bishop c5 or bishop e7, in both cases you get an advantage. But it's interesting. So in one case we get an attack, in the other case we get positional grip on dark squares. Let me see. So if we want to get control on d4 and c5 squares, maybe it's better idea for black to play bishop e7. But we will come back to this. Bishop c5, we go f3, knight g5, f4, knight e4. So eventually this position is played with knight d2. Well, actually, even if it's black's move here, they can go bishop b6, then we will go knight c3. But the type of position is this: knight d2, knight takes d2, and queen takes d2. When black castles, then knight b3 and bishop b6, queen to c3. You see, next you're going to go knight c5, bishop d4, with total blockade, just as we saw in the French defense. So, and then you have potential of f5. This is absolutely beautiful setup for white, with potential of a very strong attack. Every positional advantage, when you have big positional advantage and controlling on the square, it has to follow by some concrete way to take advantage of it. In this case, it will be the king side attack. Now, let's try black to interfere with our plans. So you supposed to be, by now, all chess players know, all reasonable chess players know that allowing this blockade is not a good idea, and obviously they will try to stop that. After e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, d4, ed, bishop c4, knight f6, e5, d5, bishop b5, knight e4, knight takes d4, bishop d7, bishop takes c6, pawn takes, and we castle. So we just saw bishop c5 move, and then we do f3, knight g5, f4, and a knight e4, bishop e3. And we are happy with this position. So if black goes bishop b6, you do not go knight d2, because blockade on dark squares fails now, because black goes c5, and after knight b3, black has knight takes d2, queen takes d2, followed by d4 and bishop c6. That's something you don't want to happen, but on the other hand, you need to have the blockade enforced. So what you do in this position, you go knight c3, because after c5 you go knight b3, and black if black takes on c3, obviously they cannot go d4. And it's interesting that even here, black has significant problems. On c4, we can go two different ways. We can go knight c5 and continue with blockade with a chance of kingside attack, or we can go knight d4 and after c5 knight e2. Now bishop on b6 is not too good, and we have a chance to create kingside attack. And anytime black pushes d4, we can just move the bishop. You see, it's very hard for black to bring this b6 bishop into the game. And our threats on kingside are very, very real. Well, this is actually not, but you see, now everybody knows, every reasonably good player knows that they shouldn't allow this kind of blockade, the one we got. But they never learn. If you go if you went through Russian chess school the way I did go through that school, and I will talk about it a little bit later. I know I read it from there that is good, but that was maybe like 40 years ago, maybe even longer. And but today's kids, they didn't go through that, but it's already, they saw so many games performed that way. They already know by the number of games they look and by the results that this is not good. So we had to learn and understand in order to use it. But today is a lot easier to learn chess. Today it comes to you all prepared, and already once you look games, it's all in there. And your knowledge and your strength in chess comes with these basic ideas. So no matter when do you learn, did you learn chess 50 years ago or 5 days ago, principles stay the same, basics are the same, and that's what chess is revolving around. So I will show you now. I want to show you a couple of a couple of other aspects of this strategy. Well, I think we are already advanced enough, if we're watching this DVD, to know the importance of quick development, active development, and space. I'm not going to be talking to that because this is kind of for beginners, but I will. What amazes me that I see some players, some pretty strong players. They, of course, they know all that, but how severely they violating these rules. Oh, they may say, you know what, I know this is so, I know these rules, I know it's, but this is good too. This is good also. And I want to do that. Well, here is my answer to that. They may be right. Maybe this is good, whatever they're suggesting, and they may be correct. But here is this. They cannot be correct if it's not within basic rules of Russian chess school. If they violate this principle, they are 100% wrong. Of course, we are not taking, there is some position maybe they tell you to go and develop control on this and this squares, schools tells you. But you may have a combination that wins a piece. We are not talking about some concrete refutations. We're talking about building the plan in a chess game you cannot play today game without building and having solid plan, unless you are playing some beginner or you are beginner yourself, then you're going to have some difficulties doing it. Well, let's see about some other aspects of strategy, such as development on active positions. Here I am playing some strong international master from Yugoslavia, and this game was played many years ago, and I was absolutely stunned the way he handled middle game. The guy was a very original chess player, and he violated some rules that I was very happy to punish him for that. And it was my personal satisfaction that so the ground rules that I learned about development, about coordination of pieces, stood, and we did punish opponent for that. And this game was played in 73, and I was playing white, so I played simply c4. It's a King's Indian defense. g6, knight c3, bishop g7, d4, d6, e4, knight d7. Well, this is a little awkward way of playing King's Indian, but there's nothing wrong. Knight f3, e5, d5. And here my opponent played knight h6 as opposed to normal knight f6. Idea of knight h6 is very obvious. Black doesn't want to block the f pawn, and they want to go f5 soon. So after knight h6, I just developed bishop e2. Both sides castled. So far there is nothing wrong about development of any side. Both sides castled. Black went a5, preparing the outpost for the knight on c5, which is okay. a3, and now knight c5. After knight c5, white has to try to go b4. Obviously they cannot go b4 because rook is hanging on a1, so they have to make sure the rook is protected. But if we go rook b1, then black goes a4. So the typical move for those positions is b3 move. After b3, and now we want to go rook b1 and then b4. b3, f5 was played. That's what white was playing for. f5 was played. Bishop g5, queen to e8, knight to d2, knight f7, bishop e3. You see, bishop cannot be trapped because this is another position. Actually, what would have happened if black played f4? This is very important to notice. f4 is a very bad move. And positionally, white will have big advantage because they play bishop takes c5, pawn takes c5. You notice that this bishop is totally out of game. And now white will exchange their bad bishop for black's good bishop. And we have closed position where knights are two knights versus knight and bishop. This is a big positional advantage for white. So in this position, black does not want, obviously, to have to close the center. So what happened here after bishop g5, queen e8, bishop was g5, queen e8, knight d2, knight f7, bishop e3. Now black goes bishop h6. And it's obvious that they want to exchange dark square bishops, because then they are not going to have a bad bishop on g7, and plus the center is potentially may open, and they may have good play here. But then white goes b4, knight d7, and when I talk to you about development, you will see how position can drastically change in the next few moves. How white, having more space, can quickly develop very dangerous initiative. After b4, knight d7, e takes f, g takes f, bishop takes bishop, and knight takes bishop. It looks okay for black, and they have centralized pawns, and all they have to do to play knight f6 and bishop d7, finishing development. But now knight b5. Here comes very strong play by white that totally demolishes black's position, and they won't let black develop successfully. Queen d8, c5, d takes c. Now we are attacking d6 pawn. And it's interesting to point here that it doesn't matter. White sacrifices pawn, d takes c, queen to b3. Now you see that we have potential threat of d6 check, followed by d takes c. After queen b3, king h8 was played, and the white's goal in this position to open game as much as possible. Rook a to c1, attacking the c pawn. After a takes b, it's obvious that taking b4 pawn will be very bad for black. So in this position, I would say that black is already in severe trouble. Rook f6 was played, trying to preventing the d6. After rook f6, knight c4. This is another very powerful move. We still want to go d6, and e5 pawn may be under attack soon. It's just in general, concretely, it doesn't have any concrete threat, this move, but we're bringing more pieces. Now you can tell how in last 3-4 moves white gave up a pawn, but they have absolutely dominating pieces over black. So after knight c4, knight f7 was played, b takes c, and c6 here. Well, if knight takes c5, queen e3, black has a lot of problems that are very difficult to solve. Attacking pawn and the knight, black decided to go c6 and try to relieve the pressure. D takes c, b takes c, and knight to d6. Queen to f8 was played. Knight takes f7, queen takes f7, and I played queen c3. This position, I can tell, if I had to assess today, I would say black is absolutely lost. The black is lost because e5 pawn is hanging. White has b6 and d6 square for knight. All pieces are perfectly developed. Black's king is exposed, and the bishop and rook are badly placed, totally undeveloped. That is normally should be enough to win the game. After queen c3, queen e6 was played. Pawn has to be protected. Rook f2 d1. And now series of tactical shots, which is normal when you have overwhelming activity of the pieces. It's almost inevitable that side with big advantage in activity will have some tactical shots. Rook fd1, knight takes c5, and this is not an exception. Knight takes c5, knight b6, attacking rook and the knight. And this is a tactical shot because knight a4 was played. That was prepared for black. And now queen g3. All of a sudden, leaving knight on pre because of threat rook d8, checkmate. And it's forced for black to play rook g6. And after rook g6, rook d8, check, king g7. And there is another shot, queen to a3. Now you see knight hangs, rook hangs, bishop hangs, and queen f8 mate, threatening. This is already, we are using, that's not the only way probably to win for white, but this is clear-cut result of what activity can do to your opponent. And I believe, and very important while you're playing that, your psychologically that you believe that you have to capitalize on this big advantage. And I believed in it. And once you believe, your search level goes higher. So it's easier for you to find critical blows to your opponent. So now after queen a3, queen f6 was played. But here simply rook takes c8, knight takes b6, rook takes a8, knight takes a8, and here one last shot for white. If we play queen takes a8, that's a tactical shot too. Then black has queen g5, attacking white's rook and threatening checkmate. And I don't know if white can win. Maybe white loses. But white can win in this position easily by playing queen a7 check and taking knight very next move, regardless what black does. If black goes queen f7, then we take the knight, and there is no more queen g5. And if black did what they do, they went king h6, then queen takes a8. And now queen g5 doesn't do anything either because queen f8 check wins outright. Only legal move rook g7, and then rook takes c6 check, and black has to play queen g6, give up a queen and a game. This actually, I was proud I was proud. I played it in 73, almost 25 years ago. I was proud not because I played absolutely brilliant game, not at all. And by then I was strong enough player to realize that this is far from being brilliant game. But what was good about it? Why I felt so good about it? Because I felt that my initiative should be decisive. And whatever I believed on, I believed in activity, I believed in peace coordination, which I had, and I believed this should bring to a win. And my confidence in my beliefs rised, and I see that, oh yes, whatever I learned from theory first, theoretically heard, and then I played. Rather, but most of the strong players today, they learning differently. They learning from what they see, from examples and practice, and then they do it themselves. Well, I was very pleased when I saw that happen. And, well, really, that's one of the basic rules about playing chess right, which is part of the Russian chess school system. It worked, and I was very pleased with the result.